Welcome to the Father Knowts podcast, and I am your host, Warren W. Patten Jr., or you can call me Father Patten. Father Knowts is an informational style podcast created to give fathers a voice in their family structure. I encourage fathers to take back fatherhood and shake the trees of tradition to create a stronger family unit. We'll also delve into men's health, leadership, mentorship, and so much more. Okay, men, it's time to be a better father on purpose. Hello, fathers and men who may not be fathers yet, but welcome to the Father Knowts podcast. I am your host, Father Patten. How you doing out there? Hey, this is my second episode, and you see I am relaxed and ready to go with this second episode. Remember, most of the information that I'm sharing is mostly my opinion, and it kind of stems from the book that I wrote called Father Knowts, Being a Better Father on Purpose. Because that's what I believe you have to do. You have to be purposeful, intentional about being a father. Yes, indeed. Now, this episode is all about the voice. Come on, fathers. You got to make sure your voice is being heard. And fathers, you must set the tone in your home. Yes, I'm getting it set up right now so I can do it. Yes, set the tone in your home. It can't be the mother to set the tone. You must set the tone. That's your responsibility. The mother does set a few tones, but I'm not here to talk about what mothers do. I'm not an expert on mothers. I think I do pretty good and might be an expert on fatherhood. Yes, indeed. I believe the father must set the tone in their home. Yes, indeed. And the biggest thing about that, you really have to bring in your experience as far as keeping calm, balance, organization in your home. Sometimes it can get chaotic, depending on how many children you have. Hey, you can only have one, and it still can be chaos. But your role as the father to bring it all together and create harmony. Harmony? Ooh, ooh. Well, that wasn't close, but you know what I mean. Create harmony. Your children need to hear your voice as often as possible, even if you're not there. They need to hear your voice. I tried to make sure that my sons heard my voice even when I was at work. I wanted them to hear my voice. There were things I expected of them. And when I wasn't there, I still expected those things to be done alongside of what their mother was asking them to do. Speaking of mothers, your role also as a father, I believe, you should really help your children respect the mother. You have to have your mother's back. And you really have to support your mother on decision making and trust that she has their best interest. Now, I know she does, but sometimes they can be unruly. You know they can. But that's where you and your wife, the mother of the children, have to be, get this, a united front to keep your children from playing each one of you against each other. They'll do it. I did it when I was a child, and my sisters and brother did it as well. But if you're a united front, they can't do it. They start to think, they talk about everything. So, Father, talk to your children about respecting the mother's wishes and respecting her while you're away. And when you are away, they should still hear your voice. Now, I use terms like, I expect you to do A, B, and C. It's your responsibility to do A, B, and C. I tried to really stop myself from saying what I was told, you better. And if you don't do it, you're gonna get. That's long gone. This is the part where I say, shake the trees of tradition. Don't do what other parents have done or your parents have done. Don't do what your parents didn't do. You create the home you want it to be. And that's what I did. I did not demand my sons do anything. I expected them to understand their role in the family unit. Oh, there's another one, the family unit, because that's what you are, a family unit. Everybody does their part. And you have to really talk to your children numerous times to get them to understand the family unit, their expectations, their responsibilities, and make sure they understand you have responsibilities in this as well. But as the leader of the family, as the patriarch of the family, you have to set those boundaries as much as possible. You just can't say it once, twice, and think they've got it. Little children don't hold on to it long. So you have to repeat. And you got to be okay with repeating it over and over and over again. What's that song by Shalimar? Over and over. Don't let me get started. I'll start singing all kinds of songs. Now, when you talk to your kids early on in their learning, that's really called emergent literacy. That starts when the baby is in the womb. Fathers, your voice must be heard even then. I tried to make sure my sons heard my voice while they were in the belly of their mother. I did not want them to be surprised when they got out and they looked up. That must be father, right? Yes. But let me read this. I love doing my homework. Let me read the definition of emergent literacy. Oh, yeah, I already pulled it up. My son said, Father, quit writing things down and start looking them up. Google it. I'm learning. Early emergent learning, also known as emergent literacy, refers to the fundamental skills and knowledge children develop before they can read and write conventionally, starting with birth and continuing through the preschool years. That's what I'm talking about. Fathers are the first sign of education. And we're not talking about 1+1. We're talking about the family unit, hearing your voice. That's when I say you're shaking the trees of tradition. You have to be there from start until forever, not to finish, to forever. It is key. It is very important that your voice is heard. Now, the mother's role in the family is so crucial. Don't get me wrong. It is established. We need it. A father can't do it alone. A mother cannot do it alone. But their role is crucial. But it's also crucial for the father to bring in, and I say once again, that balance that's needed, that organization, that calmness that's needed. When things get a little bit crazy, that's the role of the father. Sometimes with just your voice, you can bring it from 10 to 5. All you might have to say is, hey, and it drops down. That's what the role of the father does. A father, let me put it to you like this. A father has to be the filter. When you're creating a wonderful pot of coffee, let's say that the mother is the water. The children are the grounds of the coffee. You, as the father, must be the filter. And when you pour that water into the grounds of the coffee and it goes through that filter, oh, you get a delicious pot of coffee. And I tell you, the aroma fills the home with peace and love. Can you smell it? Oh, yes. It's amazing. That filter does wonders. We don't even think about the filter. We just slap it in and we need coffee. But that to me is a great analogy of how sometimes the water comes splashing in, like mother does sometimes. And those coffee grounds, they just running all over the place. But the filter holds it all together. And then in the pot, the beautiful pot of coffee. Maybe you don't drink coffee, and that's okay. But I know you have smelt the aroma. It fills the room and it just brings about relaxation, kind of like my shirt. Anyway, so I believe that's one way to look at fatherhood. You have to be the filter. Now, it's not just about when things are chaotic. Sometimes I had to be the filter for my family when my wife was tired. She worked all day and she was tired. She did not feel like cooking. And I had to step up and do my part. Even if my sons wanted something that only my wife would cook, they were going to get something that father could cook. Now, I could cook, so that was not a problem. I grew up cooking. My mother made sure I knew how to cook. So I could cook a mean meal for my sons as well. But in those times when she's not feeling well, I could step up. And there were times I had to teach my sons how to make a quick meal if my wife wasn't feeling like it. So you have to be prepared for all the ins and outs of how your family dynamic is happening. And that's really the role of a father. Now, be aware of your boys and girls. And I only had sons, but I did have sisters growing up, and I was the oldest of five. But be aware of boy and girl stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Dirty rooms, stinky bodies, mercy, dirty clothes, and not wanting to wash them. Clothes are all over the place. Mm. You got to be aware of that. Then I'm going to throw in hygiene because that's very important for little boys and little girls. Not just little, but as they continue to grow. You got to talk about hygiene often, often. But as a father, you have to give that expectation on what their role is to keep their rooms clean. Now, this is the part where I think sometimes fathers fail. You got to follow up. You got to remember what you talk to your children about. So when you ask for the expectation to keep the room clean, I used to work the night shift. I'd go in at 5, get off at 12, get home about 1 o'clock, 1:30. I would always do a travel pass. That's where I used to work. We used to call it a travel pass. I use that at home. I would walk through my son's bedroom and I would do a checkpoint. Did they take care of A? Did they take care of B? And I take note of it the next day. I didn't make a rule of waking my kids up in the middle of the night for punishment. I didn't agree with that. But the next day, we have to talk about it and get it done and let them know I'll be watching. The expectation is there. I did not agree with a lot of punishment, real world. I wanted to talk to my sons and get them to understand all about what their role was in the family unit. Yeah, say it with me now. The family unit. So I think that's about it on the family dynamic, uh, united front for you and your the mother of the children or your wife. But I think hopefully you're with your wife like I am. It makes it so much easier. If your home is not everybody together, it does make it tough. That does not mean it's impossible. It is definitely possible. So let's transition. I want to talk a little bit about hearing and listening. And with my sons, I'd say, I know you heard me, but are you listening, son? There's a difference between the two. It is so key. Listening is really where you want things to happen. But hearing is happening all the time. But hearing does not mean understanding and comprehension. They hear the sounds, they hear the sound of mother's voice. And back in the day, those of you who know about Charlie Brown, sometimes parents can sound like womp, 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 womp. So they hear you, but they're not getting anything from it. And sometimes that's what parents do. They sit over there in the corner and they just run rattling information. Everything that comes out of your mouth needs to have some kind of purpose. So that's where you establish listening. You stop your children in their track and tell them what you want them to know. What I used to do is say, repeat it back to me. What did we discuss? Now, understand, I only give them one or two things depending on their age and depending on their intellect. Each one of my sons was different. I had to treat them accordingly. So I would give them one or two things and ask them to repeat it, almost like paraphrasing. But when they're young, I want them to repeat it. Then I'd ask them if they understand. Yes, it does take a little extra time. And I think as a father, you have to take that time. Oh, yes, I didn't see a lot of basketball games. I didn't see a lot of football games. I wanted to be a better father on purpose. So I sacrificed that time to spend time with my sons, with my children. So that is the key. Hearing and listening, two totally different things, but you want them to listen and understand. That's where you get comprehension and understanding. You also have to be cognizant of the distractions. Now, when I was growing up, there were not many distractions coming into our home. We only had a handful of TV stations, no cable. Okay. Now, fatherhood is different. You have to really evolve with the times with your children. And that's what I think I am doing. There are so many distractions. You have social media, gaming, which is serious. You have, of course, you always have girlfriends. I understand that. Friends, friends who have games. Oh my goodness, I had to chase my sons down trying to get to those games. Since they couldn't play them here, they'd run someplace else. I'd be right in the car behind them. Where you going? Yes, I did. Call me crazy if you want to. I was a father on purpose. So all of the distractions that are happening today, you have to be aware of them. Number one, you also have to be aware of how it's affecting your children, and you have to navigate that. And I say navigate. You might have to be a filter, but I think you have to navigate that with them. I had to learn about social media through them. They didn't want me to learn it, but I had to learn about it. And in some cases, depending on their education, parents have to learn about social media. When my sons went off to college, yes, we had to get Facebook. Of course, I'm traditional, for the most part, a traditional father. We don't need Facebook, but they had to have it. So that meant I had to get a Facebook. Mm. Can you evolve and grow with your children as a father? That's your role. So I had to get Facebook so I could see what's happening on Facebook with my sons who are in college, and they have to have Facebook. Yes. And then, of course, I think it's before Facebook, it was MySpace. Let's not go there. But my point is, you have to be able to handle the distractions just as well as your children, but you have to be a little bit better. And you have to ask some questions of coworkers. In the workplace, I really tried to be involved in everything having to do with technology because that was an easy place to learn it. And at my age, a lot of my coworkers did not think I wanted to, but I wanted to learn all about technology, social media, everything. So it is crucial when you talk to your children about hearing and listening, you really have to have your voice on point when it comes to distractions. And there are so very many. And then time with your children. Time is so important, and time is very beneficial for a father. Whenever they wanted to play video games, I'd always hit a timer. I'd have one of those kitchen timers so they could see their time and let them use the time. But I would have the time. When you got five sons, everybody needs to have a chance to play with limited time before bedtime. I allowed it. I allowed it. But I had to give them time and they had to respect that time. Then they got to the point they were looking forward to it. But I used time for everything as much as I could. If you got to go and cut the grass, this is how much time you have. No playing around. Cut the grass. Come on back in. Now, of course, I gave them enough time. But to them, they didn't understand. After a while, they did. They began to really look for the time because they knew they were done when that timer went off, as long as they were finished. And then they can go do something else. And son number two was up. Next. Then boop, 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 boop. Son number three is up. Next. And it worked for me. And they even expected it from me. I created it. They held me accountable to doing it. As they got older, I increased the time because they got better at doing the expectations. They knew about the routines, their role in the family unit. It all comes full circle. Now, these things that I'm explaining to you and sharing with you, they weren't done for me. Of course, I didn't have video games, but I didn't have this kind of feedback from my mother and stepfather. That doesn't mean I don't know what to do. So I would encourage you, Father, if you grew up without a father, that's no excuse for you being a better father on purpose. Now, I would suggest that you reach out to a father figure that's really successful with their family so you can get an idea of what you would like to do. Much of my decision making was based off of what I didn't like as a child, and I wanted to do something totally different. We'll get into that a little bit later, my childhood. All right, I'm going to make one more transition here. Now, this is important to me, and I wanted to share this because when I was younger, talking about hearing and listening, I was probably 10, 11, maybe 12 years old. And I loved all kinds of music. Of course, the Jackson 5 were a big favorite because Michael was just a year older than me. And he could sing those high notes, and I could too, before my voice cracked. But anyway, I loved all of his songs, and most of his songs, respect them and everything, but not until I heard Maybe Tomorrow. And I had heard it many times, but I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics. But when I finally paid attention to the lyrics and I felt like I understood, they spoke to me in a different way. Then my emotion showed up. I was crying like a baby. My sisters and brother thought something's wrong with Warren because he cries every time he hears that song. But the real thing is has beautiful lyrics. Don't get me wrong. He was 10 years old, 1971, 11. I don't think he knew what he was talking about and what he was singing about. But just the part about maybe tomorrow, you'll change your mind, girl. Maybe tomorrow, you'll come back to my arms, girl. That right there said, maybe tomorrow, there's going to be hope. There's going to be hope for me. Maybe tomorrow, I'll have better grades. Maybe tomorrow, I'll go out for the basketball team. Maybe tomorrow, I'll get married. Maybe tomorrow, I'll get an opportunity to be a great father. To me, maybe tomorrow meant hope, new beginnings, a chance, another chance, and dreams. And that's one thing that I do. I dream big and I dream very hard about a lot of things I would love to do. So that's the one song that really hit me. I want to tell you, I listened to it a couple of times today and I'm like, ooh, watch out, stay back, Tears, stay back, because it just brings back so many memories when I was little of maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll get that first kiss from my little crush, young lady across the street from me. Maybe tomorrow will be the time. Oh, yeah. So it is very important that you find that song that brings out the emotion, and so that you can tap in to your emotions, where your heart and your brain come together just like that. That's where you can help your sons, your girls. It is amazing what you can do when you can tap into that. I know many times men grow up with that hard exterior. You have to be tough. You can't let them see you cry. My sons are so used to me crying, it's not a big deal. I am authentically me. I will cry at the drop of a hat, but I'm also strong because that shows my strength. And I've shared that with them. I am who I am. I can be all things and I can have a little bit of emotion because there are times I have to be the nurturer when my wife is not a nurturer. Mm, I want you to sit on that just a little while. Put a cord in so you can vibrate. Mhm. Sometimes I am a nurturer. My wife can't always do the nurturing. Sometimes I have to be the one to say, "Come here, let me kiss that knee. It's going to be all right. Let's go find a band aid." That's my role. That's the role of a father. We have to be better as parents to where we just don't push a child from from one parent to the other because you don't want to deal with it. I wanted to deal with everything. There was times my wife said, I got this. And I'd say right back to her, I got this too. We don't need to fight. We can do it together. But the expectation sometimes is kind of scary when you're crying, but you're still taking care of business. When you're crying, but you're still strong. You're crying, but you're still masculine. All of those things can happen. But that's once again, when I say shake the trees of tradition, I never saw my stepfather cry. He nothing but he saw me cry, especially when he put my butt. But anyway, I made sure that didn't happen often. I did exactly what he asked me to do. I was a good son, yeah, because I knew the consequences. But it is crucial that we continue to grow as fathers and be exactly what we want to be. And sometimes we have to be what we didn't have. I'm going to go slow on that because we have to sometimes be for our children what we didn't have when we were children. I'm not throwing shade. It is what it is. The generations are here and they have their way of doing things. I understand my stepfather, he was 40 years older than me. I understood him. I didn't make him feel bad, but he was from a different generation. I understand my biological father, who's about 24 years older than me. He is from a different generation than my stepfather. I'm not mad at either one of them for what they did. I understand. And that's what I want my sons to understand. I've told them all about the generations. And that's how we can change things every generation. And for my generation, I wanted it to be different. I really wanted it to be different. I want to be a different kind of father and see how I would do. I think I've done great. My sons and I have great relationships, all five of them. And they reach out to me for things all the time. But I am an open book with them. So that is the key. I couldn't be an open book with my stepfather. He saw all of my craziness. He didn't understand, but he didn't ask questions. My biological father, he understands me a little bit better, but I'm spending a lot of time talking to him about change and shaking the trees of tradition because he don't understand. I don't understand. Yes, you do. I believe you do now understand why I do things the way I think they should be done, and it's because of what this is what I wanted as a child. I did not get it. I'm giving it to my sons. This is the key. The love that I felt like I didn't get from my fathers, I'm giving that love to my sons. And my sons, in return, give all the love that I've ever wanted. They give it back to me. Don't make me scream. Don't make me cry, because I will. But they are some awesome young men. So I just hope this helps you as a father. Those of you who don't have children and thinking about being a father, you can listen to this too, because you have to really make decisions and make life changes before you decide to have children. Now, I took that route. I took the route of wait, find my mate, find the woman that I know I'm going to marry. And then we planned our future together. We did not have children until probably 4, maybe 5 years after we got married. And that's the way I think it should be done. That's just me. Everybody doesn't follow that path, and that's okay. But if you have an opportunity, find the right one, plan your children, and come together and have discussions about what you want the family unit to be alike, and being a united front, you and the mother of the children working together for the betterment of your children. It's all good. But remember, Father set the tone in your home. Got to do it. You just got to do it. Now, a couple of things I want to share before this episode ends. In the book Father Notes, Being a Better Father on Purpose, this is where that's the foundation of Father Notes, the podcast. I haven't shown it to you, but I've been using it quite a bit. One of the things that I highlight in that book are the national holidays for fathers and sons, because I think fathers and sons don't get enough attention on holidays. I'm always wondering, why do all of the women get all of the holidays? Why do we celebrate all of them all day long, all month long? What about us men? Hey, I'm not mad, but I'm here to celebrate those holidays that we have and make them known on this podcast and also in my book, Father Notes, Being a Better Father on Purpose. In that book, this month, we did have a national holiday. National Sons Day was March 4th. And if you go online and check my YouTube page or check my Facebook page at Warren W. Patten Jr., you will see where I have talked about National Sons Day. And I highlight all 5 of my sons. We just have to do better at celebrating the family unit, especially our sons and our fathers. Because also as a son, as a father, I'm also a son, and my father is still alive. So I have to definitely celebrate the fact that I'm a son. That's why I want to celebrate that day. Of course, hardly no one says anything, but I'm trying to bring it up. I'm on a mission. I'm trying to see if we can bring some celebration for fathers and sons and daughters. Daughters don't get as much attention, but I have a couple of siblings day, sons and daughters day. I put that in there too. Nothing wrong with daughters. I think they should get more attention as well. Now, National Sons Day is a special holiday because it has 2 days that they celebrate, March 4th and September 28th. So there's going to be another one coming up toward the end of the year, National Sons Day. Now, there's another holiday for men coming up in April. I'll tell you about that on the next episode. So get ready for that. And I'd like for you to really think about the things that we've talked about today. Let me go back and just kind of do a quick recap. We talked about the father. Set the tone in your home. Yes. And also, father, talk to your children and say, I know you heard me, but are you listening? Got to get that listening, got to get that understanding of what you're talking about, that comprehension of that. And then I talked about Maybe Tomorrow. That was a song that brought up the emotions. That's when my heart opened up, my mind opened up, and the emotions started to flow. And I could share those emotions with my sons. I don't know how many stories I've told them that were really brought me to tears. And they were like, Father, why are you crying? I said, because I can still feel when that happened to me, how I felt at that time and how I've come through, how I got to the other side. So you got to share those and let them see the emotion behind it. I just think it's crucial. I just think it's crucial. Also, before I let you go, it's also true that you can follow me, and I already said it once. You can follow me on my YouTube page. That's where you'll also find my episodes for Father Notes, the podcast, and you will see all of the other crazy things I have going on my YouTube page. And so at Warren W. Patten Jr., click on YouTube, or you can click on my Facebook page. You can see that. Also, you can go to warrenwpattenjr.com, and that's where you'll see my website. Now, of course, I'm developing it. It's under construction a little bit, but I'm working on it frequently, almost once a week. I'm trying to keep it up to date, put some new stuff on there. So please go and follow me, share, like, subscribe if you'd like to. That would be awesome. That way you'll know when I'm going to drop the next episode of Father Notes. Now, I'm trying to do it every other Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. That's when I want to drop each episode. So look forward to it. In about 2 weeks, you'll see another one. This episode should drop on this coming Wednesday, the 19th of March. Yes, indeedy. So thank you so much for joining. I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate you listening. I'm going to try to make sure that this podcast is both visual and audio, but I'm working on that behind the scenes. I'm doing my thing. Got a couple of my sons, mentoring me. My sons mentoring me. Oh, yeah. That's how it works, people. They mentor me. Not a couple. I got 3 of them mentoring me. Oh, my goodness. And I love it. So they are really doing a great job of showing me how to do this. Now, I have a background in speech communications and theater. So all of this setup and everything, I've done this before. And they know that I have, but I'm using up-to-date equipment. So I need their assistance when it comes to it. So thank you so much for joining. One thing I'd like to share with you, fathers, before I sign off, and I'll probably use this when I sign off on each one of my episodes, is make the choice to use your voice. Make the choice to use your voice. That's where your power comes in. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Father Notes, the podcast. And I'm going to sign off and prepare for the next one coming up in 2 weeks. Make the choice to use your voice. Father Patten, out.